Hello friends, my name is Leigh and I create videos about photography as an art and as a lifestyle. Today I am doing something I haven't done in quite some time. I am doing a Q&A. I have a bunch of your questions. I asked for them on YouTube, y'all delivered, and we'll get into them in just a minute. First, I want to update you on just a few projects that I'm working on. Right here I have some Nikon gear. I have the relatively newly announced Nikon Z5 II on loan, which I will be using and creating a video about pretty soon. And then I have three lenses here. One is mine. This is the 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8. And then on loan, I have the 24 to 70 millimeter f4 and the 24 to 120 millimeter f4 lens. My idea with those is to create a video where I talk about which lens to get with your Nikon Z kit. Really, it can kind of be applicable to a lot of different brands because a lot of different brands have very similar offerings to these lenses. So that will be coming up pretty soon as well. I also have a bunch of gear on its way to me right now. I have some OM system gear, the OM3, the OM5 Mark II, a few lenses. I have some TT Artisan lenses on their way. I think I have a tripod and at least one other lens that I can't quite put my finger on. Anyway, I have lots of cool gear coming in, so I plan some photo outings with them. So definitely make sure you're subscribed. Okay, let's talk about y'all's questions. Okay, now these first three questions are from the same person, and I think they kind of go together. They all have to do with gear. First question. Do you think all these high resolution or 40 plus megapixel cameras are actually necessary if you're not a professional? Second question is, how often do you actually shoot your fast primes, f1.4 or wider? Wide open. How often do you shoot those extra wide aperture lenses wide open? And three, does it even make sense to get a fast prime if you have to stop it down anyway to avoid woes of super shallow depth of field? And I think those three questions kind of go together because the root of those questions, I believe, is, do I need to get the most expensive gear, the highest capability gear? And my answer is, whether or not you're a professional or an amateur or somewhere in between, no, you don't. There's no specific gear that you need to have to be a professional or to take pretty pictures. I think it's all about finding something that works for you and for your style of photography. And if that's an f1.8 prime lens instead of an f1.4 prime lens, or even if it's an f2 prime lens instead of f1.8 or f1.4, or if it's a zoom lens like the 24 to 120 millimeter f4 lens, that one works really well for you. That's what you should go with. And same thing goes for camera bodies. Just because you have more pixels doesn't mean that it's a better camera inherently. It might be good for you, it might not be the greatest for you, especially when you take into account budget. So I've used all sorts of gear over my time as a photographer. It's been a long time that I've been taking pictures, and yeah, I've used all kinds of different things. So no, I don't think you need the biggest and best gear. I myself don't always use the biggest and best gear. I shouldn't even say the word best. I don't use the biggest and most expensive gear all the time because the best gear for me isn't always the f1.4 prime. Sometimes it's the smaller f2 prime. Okay, next question. What's your keeper rate like for a typical day of shooting? 5%, 10%, 20%, more? I don't know what the percentage is, but I can say that I keep more photos than I used to. I used to just kind of take as many photos as I could and see what I ended up with at the end of the day. As I have, gotten older and like to spend less and less time at my desk, and as I've gotten to know really exactly what I like and exactly what I want as I've planned for each outing, I take fewer and fewer photos, so I don't need to get rid of as many, if that makes sense. So I can't tell you what the percentage is, but it's definitely, at least 20%, maybe more. Next question. How much time do you spend editing weekly? I assume you mean photo editing and not my video editing. Video editing takes a lot longer for me generally. But with photo editing, generally on a weekly basis, I will spend 2 or 3 hours, let's say. Again, every week for me is so different because I like to do so many different things, but kind of hearkening back to that last question about keepers, because I am intentional when I actually press that shutter release button, I don't have as many photos that I need to get rid of. So everything takes me less time. I also am really familiar with my different pieces of editing software, and I know what I generally like to use to get to a goal of any given photo. Say for a landscape, I pretty much know the steps that I'm going to want to take to get to that finished result that I want to post. Please hold. How do you take photos in middling lighting in boring locations, for example, suburbia? I actually have a whole video on this, so I will link to that in the description of this video. But basically, it just takes slowing down and really paying attention and really thinking through what you're doing and what your surroundings are. Oh, and you know what? Sometimes they're just not going to be great photos. Sometimes they're just going to be okay. And, that's just how it is. And next question, what's your most memorable moment while out taking photos? Oh my gosh, I have so many memorable moments while out taking photos. The Grand Canyon has been on my mind lately because the North Rim is on fire right now and is going to be closed for the rest of the year. It's really, really sad. The lodge has been burned down. Lots of structures have been burnt down. So far as I know, there's been no loss of life, which is amazing. But yeah, the bad times at the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. So right now, I would say my most memorable moment would be when we first arrived at the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. And, there's just a couple of photos that Raymond took of me at the North Rim that I can tell that I'm just at peace and I'm really enjoying myself. And then there's photos throughout that trip that right now are particularly memorable to me. So yeah, that certainly changes. I have so many memorable moments. I have a camera in my hand so often, but yeah, that's what I'm going to say for now. Let's see, next. Do you have a sister? Yes, I do. Next, would you go back to using film? What's funny about this is that probably 2 weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, sure, I would consider going back to film full time. However, last weekend, Raymond and I pulled out some older DSLRs, project upcoming, and we're going to make a video about using some older DSLRs. It's been a fun process so far. So again, subscribe if you aren't already. But using the older DSLRs made me really realize how much I appreciate modern technology in our newer cameras, these, especially mirrorless cameras out today. They are so capable, so good. They take a lot of the mental load off of me so that in terms of technicals, so that I can just appreciate what I'm doing and my surroundings. So yeah, everything from a flip out screen to how many autofocus points are available in my frame. I really do like those modern mirrorless options, but I do like shooting film sometimes. In fact, all of those cameras on the top row there are film cameras. Got some film era lenses as well, plus wait, here, hold on, right there. There's a pile of film right there that's just waiting to be used. All right, next. Are your children interested in pursuing a career in photography? Not at all, not at all. They don't mind taking pictures, sometimes they will, but they don't have the calling as I do. Since you and Raymond own so many different camera systems, how hard is it to keep track of all the settings when you go from one system to the next? It's not really for me, but I think that's because I use all of my gear often. So I'm in it all the time. I think I can liken it to, say, if you work in an office and you use multiple pieces of software, you know how to use those different pieces of software. You don't struggle going from one to the next. And that's how it is with cameras. Now, I can say that if I pick up cameras that I don't use very often, like Sony and Canon, I just don't use them all that often. And so it does take me a minute to kind of switch my brain over to those particular brands, just because terminology is a little bit different, controls are a little bit different. But, you know, yesterday I was filming Raymond for a video that he is producing. I'm really excited about this video, by the way. Finally, Raymond is going to make another appearance on the channel. This video is completely different from anything else that we have really ever published. So I'm excited to see what y'all's response will be. I'm excited about it. In case I didn't say that probably 3 or 4 times already. What is the question that I'm answering? Oh, systems, different systems. I was using the Nikon Z9 to film him that day. We wanted to use 8K so that we had flexibility later on in post-processing. So that's what I was using. No problem, set it up, got everything ready. Then I've got the Z5 II here, same camera system. So a lot of the terminology is the same, but the capabilities are different. So I have to keep that in mind, and the controls are different. But it's really not a problem for me because I don't know, it's just not. And then today I'm using a Lumix camera to film myself. I'm using the Lumix S5 II right now. So it just isn't, I'm using all these different cameras all the time. So my brain has learned how to deal with that. Next, how old are you? I mean, really? What do you mean, I mean, really? Do you think I'm gonna lie? I'm 45 and I'm proud of that. Okay, next question. What truth, if any, do you believe photography can reveal? Well, that's an interesting question. I think the obvious is like news reporting. Certainly that can reveal truths. But I guess, you know, I actually have watched a couple of movies lately that kind of have to do with this. The first one was a movie based on a real person. It's called Leigh, L-E-E, and it's based on Leigh Miller, who was a photographer, and the movie focuses on her time doing photography during World War II on the ground in Europe. And, you know, at the time, her photography revealed the truths of what was going on, and even now it kind of does as well. And it also, for me, reminded me the truth that times were so different back then in that we didn't have as fast of a news cycle. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have camera phones where we could snap a picture and post it on Instagram or TikTok right away, and, you know, the whole world basically knows about it. So there's that. And then the other movie I watched is a documentary. Oh my gosh, it's called Uncropped, but the name of the photographer that it focuses on, I am completely has fallen out of my brain, which is sad because I actually really, really like his photography. I'm going to watch the documentary again, and I'm sure that it will stick in my brain, and I will purchase, you know, however many books he has and all of that. But anyway, he was a photographer, or is a photographer in New York City. He did street photography, and he photographed for a number of different newspapers at the time. And his photography was beautiful, and a lot of people said he could just point the camera and magically, like, composition and everything would be great. But what struck me was that a number of people that were interviewed for the documentary said that he was just able, when he was taking pictures of people, he was just able to get something out of them that no one else seemed to be able to. If the person was a very serious person, he would end up capturing them smiling or laughing. So, you know, whether or not that's revealing a truth about him just being, you know, an easy person to be around, or a truth about the person that he's taking a photo of, I don't know. But I definitely, I think I answered that question in a roundabout way. And again, I will link to those movies in the description of this video, because both of them are really good. Next, how does the camera change the way you see the world beyond the act of taking pictures? I would say that having a camera in my hand forces me to slow down and really notice the details in the world around me. Let's say, I just talked about the Grand Canyon. Let's say I'm at the Grand Canyon and I have this 24 to 120 millimeter lens. I am taking the broad photo, kind of what I might see if I didn't have a camera with me, this 24 millimeter wide angle, broad vista. And it's like, wow, that's really big. And that's one way of seeing the canyon. But if you zoom in to 120 millimeters, you are pointing your camera at details at that point. You're seeing maybe how the north rim of the Grand Canyon across the way, how it is crooked, or how the geological features look over there, or the colors and the shadow and the light. Or maybe I'm taking a photo of a plant that maybe I wouldn't really have noticed because there's lots of plants around at the rim. But maybe I had my camera lens zoomed in, so I noticed the details of something. So I would say that having a camera in my hand makes me notice the world more, and that is one of the reasons why I love photography. Next question, what to you is the difference between a successful image and a meaningful one? Well, for me, I guess, yeah, there is a difference. A successful image for me would be something on social media, let's take Instagram for example, that gets a lot of likes. That would be successful for me. Or an image in one of my YouTube videos where maybe some people commented on a specific image in the comments. But a meaningful image, it may also be a successful image, but it may not. It may be something personal. For example, again, I'm just going to apparently talk about the Grand Canyon this entire video, but there's a photo of me at the rim of the north rim of the Grand Canyon when we first got there. And that's a meaningful photo for me because it was my first time at the north rim. I knew how beautiful the weather was. I know how I felt inside. So that's a meaningful photo to me, but not necessarily a successful photo. Next, to what extent do social or political developments influence your choice of subjects? For this channel, it really doesn't. I actually try to be apolitical here. And the reason for that, it's definitely been a choice for me. I know that this channel is a release for a lot of people, an escape for a lot of people who use photography as, their hobby, as their own release from real life. So I try to keep this channel as more of a release where you can kind of take a minute and not be thinking about the real world. And oh my gosh, this is my last question. My last question is, do you believe photography reveals something about you that words cannot express? I don't know. That is a really interesting question. Do I believe that photography reveals something about me that words cannot express? I don't know. I think maybe sometimes. Maybe you see me looking really happy in a particular photo. I guess I would hope through at least my nature, wildlife, landscape photography that you can see my love of what I'm doing. So I guess I don't know if it really reveals something about me, but I guess I hope it does. So yeah. These were really good questions, y'all. Thank you so much to everyone who asked me questions. They really got me to thinking, and it was a really nice break from what I normally do, which is a very thought out video where I'm talking about one subject in particular. This one I was kind of able to sit down and just, think a little bit beyond what I normally do. So thanks again to everybody. Also, make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already, because I do have so many videos coming up that I am personally excited about. So hopefully you all will be too. And including that one that Raymond is making. And what else? Oh, I know. I have an idea. Comment down below. Do you think that your photography reveals something about you that words cannot express. I would love to hear from you on that, and maybe even send me a link to an example. Yeah, do that down in the comments, please. And also like this video if you haven't already. That's a big help for the channel. And lastly, thank you all for watching.